Today, I'll be showing the full process of this art piece, from sketch to rendering. In this art piece, I decided to do one of my favorite characters, Madoka. I'll probably make a series of drawing all the characters in Madoka Magica, so stay tuned if so. This video is like a draw with me, so grab your sketchbook and devices and let's get started. I started sketching the pose. I wanted to do a complex pose to keep it interesting. Since Madoka has a bow and arrow, I thought it would be a good idea to practice drawing weapons. I also want to add some perspective to spice things up. The issue was that I wasn't feeling the pose, so I planned out to take the idea from before into a better pose. I kept rotating the waist to make it more dynamic. I still want to add perspective by making the hand and the bow arrow a bit bigger. After I add details such as the top, skirt, and the bows, then I adjust the perspective to make sure everything is still proportional. Once we got the rough sketch, it's time to go on to the line art. Since I got the silhouette of the drawing, I draw the line art of the details. I lower the opacity of the sketch and add a new layer for the line art. I drew a neutral face expression since I'll make it more expressive and full of life on the rendering stage. Since it's on an angle, I drew the hair strands on an angle. For the hair strand, it mainly looks like bananas that are shaped like triangles and loose strands. Clothes were pretty simple. I traced the silhouette and add details like the wrinkles. Then I just copy off the reference images for drawing the ruffles. Now I draw the top with details of ruffles. Hand is still kind of confusing for me. I just use my own hand as reference. I always try to cover hands, like putting them behind or having super long sleeves, but I guess I shouldn't run away from responsibility and try to draw hands. Drawing the fist was the hardest part. I had a slight trouble with the angle and the thumb, but I made some adjustments by using the liquify tool and just eyeball it until it looks fine. Now it's onto the skirt. This step was pretty simple because I copied off the reference I see. Drawing the bow was as well as simple. Since the bow was made out of wood, I didn't worry about clean lines since wood is rough. Now, as for the arrow, I wanted to keep it from the separate layer in case of adjustments. Once everything is drawn, I adjust the body parts and fix the perspective. For the base color, I placed down a gray for the base, which outlines the silhouette. After I place down the basic color on a separate layer above, and is set to clip and mask. Once I place down the basic color, I adjust the color using filters. This helped make the colors more interesting. After, I lower the opacity on the layer with the line art. Then, I place the basic color of the arrow on a layer with the line art. The arrow and the character is on a separate layer. I add the shadows. I added a new layer above, making it clip and mask and set it to multiply. I use a saturated purple and a lasso fill tool to add shadows. Now after I add the light source, I added a new layer above and set it to add. I use a bright pink to give it contrast. I wanted the light source to feel powerful and dynamic, so I placed it above to give a magical effect. I know how to render. But no one really does. I actually have no idea how to do it. I just go with the flow and wing it. But references do really help me when rendering something. Now that I got the shadows and the light source, it's time to add the midtones, the blending. I started rendering like hatching. I use a blending brush and draw hatching lines to give texture. This method is just a preference in an art style. I render like this since I don't really care of clean rendering. I usually like to keep it messy. Although I don't use the hatching method, I sometimes do some soft blending, but not using the Gaussian blur effect nor the blur tool. Since the light source is coming from above, the lightest and brightest color will become from the top view of a 3D shape. Now I adjust the perspective and liquify. I also finish the rendering and blend some final touches. I added a ring highlight above, since the light source is coming from above. This helped the hair look more in depth. Now it's time for the background. I don't really have a clear idea on what the color of the background will look like, but the concept was to give a magical vibe. Since Madoka is a goddess, I wanted her to look cool and magical at the same time. I had a slight problem with the perspective, such as the arrow colliding with the hand. I had to use a lasso tool and to make sure the hand is on a separate layer to adjust and move the hand's placement. But I also had to fill the empty spaces. Now finally, add details like hatching and texture.
One eternity later.
Now that rendering the face is almost done, I add extra details like using a darker color to outline, which gives a clearer focus. Now I adjust and add details on the face, since it is the main focus in this art piece. I wasn't feeling the face expression, so I changed the eyebrow to give a strong look. Adding highlights, I gave a sparkly highlight to give a magical vibe, with a bright pink outline and a pure white highlight. This lightens the move and gives it more life in the art piece. Adding more contrast by adding a bright teal on the light source part. I spiced up this drawing by adding sparkles. I used the same bright teal to give contrast. My favorite color in this art piece is the pink and the teal, mainly because they work well with each other, since it does involve with color theory. Like, it has similar relationships with complementary color. I am not going to go more in depth in color theory because I don't know much about it. I added a glow effect on the bow which helps make the art piece pop more. Finally, I add final color and background adjustments, adding sparkles and filters. After some quick adjustments to my liking, the art piece is finished. I already posted 7 ways to spice up your drawing on my YouTube channel, TikTok, and Instagram. so you can check them out if you want to know how I spiced up this drawing. So that's the full process from sketch to render. I hope you enjoyed this draw with me. We'll see you next time, goobers. Bye!